Hi, I'm Chris MacDonnell.
I'm Megan Shumate-Beaumont.
I'm Martha Hyde.
I'm Angela Shanker.
And I'm Deb Avery.
We are New York Broadway Clarinetists, and
We are the ICA.
As a native of New Jersey and a graduate of the Juilliard School, I've been a part of Broadway since my departure from the President's own Marine Band. When performing on Broadway, you'll often see me playing multiple instruments, sometimes all the clarinets, saxophones, flutes, even the oboe. I've played several seasons as the regular woodwind chairholder at Radio City Music Hall Christmas Spectacular. Just recently, I was performing with the Broadway production of New York, New York at the St. James Theater. When I'm not in the pit, I'm playing in regional orchestras, my own chamber groups, and teaching. As a member of the ICA, I've had the privilege of performing at Clarinet Fest, recently premiering a clarinet solo written especially for me by a Taiwanese composer for the 2022 Reno Clarinet Fest. When I'm not in the theater, I'm playing for my number one fan, my cat.
Hi, I grew up in West Virginia, and now I live just outside of New York City. I'm the Reed 3 player at the Broadway musical Wicked, a job that I got last October after subbing for a little over 7 years. My book includes B-flat clarinet, E-flat clarinet, bass clarinet, and soprano saxophone. I love playing the auxiliary clarinets and exploring the different characters that they can create. Wicked uses a lot of E-flat clarinet to represent screeching wicked witches, crazy flying monkeys. It's really a lot of fun to play. I'm really honored to have played in fancy concert halls and national TV and with famous soloists. But one of my favorite musical experiences is when I got to go into my son's preschool classroom and introduce my instruments. Due to COVID, parents and visitors hadn't been allowed in the schools for over a year. But it was so fun. My 5-year-old was so excited to introduce me to his class. Being able to sit among the kids and see their eyes light up as I played the latest Disney hit was a memory that I'll never forget.
I'm a native of southwestern Ohio, a small town called Yellow Springs. Its main claim to fame is Antioch College, and right now, Dave Chappelle, who is a resident there. I am a veteran of over 75 Broadway shows because I live the life of a substitute. I rarely have my own chair, but I have played a number of shows. Well, a lot of shows. I've also done a lot of off-Broadway and Radio City, also as a sub. I have a story about the ICA from about 1,000 years ago when I was still in college at the College Conservatory of Cincinnati. Back in those days, they didn't allow clarinet performance majors to study jazz because you didn't play clarinet in jazz. It was just not a thing that was done. And I begged my way into a jazz improv class by saying that I didn't want any credit, I just wanted to sit in. And the director told me to bring my best cracked reed, and I was kind of upset about that. Like, does that mean I have to sound bad to play jazz? I came to the Clarinet Festival in Toronto, and I'm not going to say the year because it was 1,000 years ago. And that is where I first heard Eddie Daniels play. And that is when I realized that no, you do not have to sound bad on the clarinet to play jazz, because he plays everything and he sounds great on everything. I was so impressed with him that I remembered his name and I bought all of his records. And years later, when I was playing on the street in New York City in front of Zabar's with a trio, he happened to walk up. And I was like, oh my God, it's Eddie Daniels! It's Eddie Daniels! Oh my goodness! And we played a movement. He came up and introduced himself. He was the nicest guy. My ligature was beginning to break. And he goes, oh, you know what? I have one here in my pocket. So he gave me a ligature. So that's my story.
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and went to school at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, and then did my master's at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, and quickly moved, chasing my dream of playing music in New York, to New York City right after graduation. My funniest / fondest memory, I think, and craziest after working in the city all these years, started out with a gig where I wasn't actually playing clarinet at all, but I was hired as just a fake musician in an orchestra for a TV show called Mozart in the Jungle. But then at the last minute, there was an episode where they actually wanted to film the orchestra play on Rikers Island. And they wanted us to play. They couldn't pipe in music for this particular episode. And then the night before, just about the night before, maybe, I don't know, a day and a half before, they called me and said, actually, they want to do an excerpt from Quartet for the End of Time, which, as clarinetists know, is not exactly the easiest thing to just pick up and play on basically no notice. But as you do, as a working musician, you say yes, and then you hang up the phone and go, ah, later. So learned or relearned the solo after not playing it for so many years. And it was a truly remarkable experience.
I'm currently the clarinet player at Andrew Lloyd Webber's newest musical, Bad Cinderella. Besides the clarinet, I'm also playing bass clarinet and baritone sax. I've also just celebrated my 40th year of playing the clarinet. To play Broadway is such a fun experience that's different from any other kind of playing. You know, I was raised in both jazz and classical and went to school at Eastman and then went to University of Southern California. And it was in Los Angeles that I did my first Broadway show. And to me, I was like, wow, I can play all these different instruments and all these different styles. And it just built such a love for the genre. And that's where it ended up getting me back to New York, where I grew up, and played my first show at Radio City about 10 years ago. If I'm not playing shows, I'm home practicing with my sweet practice mate, Bella. She is a Havanese poodle mix, and she's very active in my work.